The Beaumont Planning Commission to order at 6:05. Roll call, please.
Chairman St. Martin,
Present.
Vice Chairman Voss, Commissioner Smith,
Present.
Commissioner Rurick,
Present.
Commissioner Johnson.
Okay, down to. Join me in the, are there any actions or requests for excused absence? I'm looking at you, Nate.
No, I'm good.
Join me in a pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Are there any adjustments to the agenda?
No.
No conflicts, right?
No.
Just in time. Just got started.
Okay, any one person may address the Planning Commission on any matter not on this agenda. If you wish to speak, please fill out a public comment form provided at the back table and give it to the city clerk. There is a 3-minute time limit on public comments. There will be no sharing or passing of time to another person. State law prohibits the commission from discussing or taking actions brought up by your comments. Item number 1, approval of the minutes dated May 9th. I'll hear a motion.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Smith, second by Commissioner Rurick.
Okay.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Johnson,
Approve.
Commissioner Rurick,
Approve.
Commissioner Smith,
Approve.
Chairman St. Martin.
Approve. Item number 2, temporary use permit number Plan 2017-0018.
Thank you, Commissioners. Planning Commission approved temporary use permit 15-TUP20 on September 8, 2015 for a temporary residential occupancy of a travel trailer to be utilized as a residence at 1341 East 8th Street during the construction of the permanent home on the property. The trailer would be hooked up to sewer, water, and electricity and located on a cement pad. The Planning Commission approved this temporary use permit subject to the condition that the temporary use permit would not be valid until they been issued a building permit for the house and will expire 1 year from the issuance of that permit. The applicant is now requesting a new approval, removing the requirement that a building permit be issued. Staff is recommending denial as this is not permitted in the municipal code. And although Planning Commission has approved similar temporary use permits in the past during construction, which adds security to the site, staff believes this would be poor precedence to allow people to live in RVs on residential properties at any other time. The applicant has moved into the site sometime prior to or during January 2017, and a building permit has not been issued. Additionally, it looks as if there's been some construction built attached to the trailer, which hasn't been permitted. I have attached the photographs of the site. This application is exempt, and staff recommends denial of temporary use permit plan 2017-0018.
Thank you, Rebecca. Is the applicant here?
I haven't
Is he-
talked to him since the original application. I know he's emailed the city manager, and I believe that included the time, but I didn't, I tried calling him today to give him a reminder, and I didn't get through to him. So I don't know if you want to continue this to give him an opportunity to come, due to the fact that he's not here.
Yeah, I'd like to talk to him.
Can I just ask a quick question to
Sure,
Rebecca?
absolutely.
How far along is he in the process to getting a permit?
So, not very. He has been through 4 plan checks. He hired an architect that, in our opinion, not very qualified and has since quit drafting plans. So now he has to front the money to a new draftsman to prepare. But the last 3 plan checks have had no changes to the comments that were requested. So the architect has basically been submitting
Same thing.
the same plans and not addressing the comments. And so, I have the dates if you're curious of those plan checks, but it started in April 26th. On April 26th, and it's been going back and forth. So, I'm sorry, that's 2016, April 26, 2016. And we've gone through a few plan checks a few months apart.
Does the plans have anything to do, I mean, I've been to the properties, there's a big hole in the front. Is that included in the plans like a basement?
So, he decided to dig a basement, and we told him he needs the plans to show the basement, so now he's deciding not to do the basement. Some of the issues were, the property originally kind of sloped to the rear, so he needed to slope it to the street with the new, lot drainage so that it didn't drain into adjoining parcels. So he decided, my understanding is to just dig a basement and use that dirt
To fill
just to fill it down. But again, the plans never showed a basement, and we kept saying, well, if you're gonna have a basement, you need to show it on the plans. So now I think he's trying to collect fill dirt to
The sign
close up the
says,
basement.
yeah, fill dirt needed.
Yes, it does. So it seems, the situation is that, we'll tell him or give him a heads up, like the drainage, but even though he's told he needs a precise grade, he'll start possibly doing stuff before he actually gets the permits for him. And, almost, some of the stuff like even just that construction, I don't know where that idea came from.
On the
Start
RV?
Building onto the RV, if it was, he asked about it and then someone said you'd have to do this and then he did it, I don't know.
I think he has a family lives there because there's kid toys.
Yeah, I
in
think
the,
his family lives with him, correct.
And it's probably not much space. So question, so is he living there illegally then? Because,
Yes. Currently, there's a code enforcement case on this, because when we saw that he was living there and all that was being done, we wanted to remind him that he's not supposed to live there.
and so that's his way of coming back here to
So
say,
now he's coming back here and
Get
has
off.
applied. He said on his application, which I didn't include because it had confidential information, on his updated application, he just says, temporary housing for my family at this address. Fees have been paid to Public Works and Building. Due to problems with architect, 4 plan checks later, they could not be approved. Allowing temporary residence will allow us to save money to pay for another architect to create plans acceptable to the city. Please allow this temporary use for 1 year. Thank you. And then it says previous approval was contingent on building permit being issued. I am asking for this contingency to be removed so that I can save money to pay for the additional fees needed. Please consider doing this. Thank you.
So, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I don't know, so 2 questions. One, it's for sale too, I noticed, the property.
I don't know if that's because he hasn't gotten anywhere, so he's looking to possibly just get out from under it and start over somewhere else, or I couldn't respond
got
to
it.
that
And then-
question.
I'm just trying to get it in my head. I know we're,
His emails to us imply that he's trying to build a home for him and his family.
Yeah.
Not for resale of any kind.
I guess the last question then, so the temporary use permit would be for a year, but if he's having a hard time getting the funds for the architect, that would imply a hard time getting the funds to build the property.
And would probably imply that we'd be back here in a year, even if it was issued.
Yeah, so what,
And that's the problem we've ran into in other properties. They've done it without permit and it's lasted years.
There's other houses on that street on the other side that are in similar situations, and that area is it is on the dilapidated side. And that's something for consideration. I mean, it's not where it needs to be.
so what would be different than if we were to deny it tonight? And, I mean, things are not going to change regardless, whether he's present or not.
I mean, I would hope that a denial on the application would, move him out of the property and code of case would move forward. I think he was hoping to be able to stay where he's at and clear up the code
Yeah,
enforcement.
well, that's my point, though. He hasn't complied with the conditions.
I think from his correspondence with myself and the city manager, he implied that when someone asked him if he's good to go, that response was yes, that he thought that meant he was good to build, when it really meant this is what you need to submit for the plan check. So I don't want to put words in his mouth whether he thought he was allowed to move in there or did it without permission at all. I think, from his letters, I would infer that he thought he was, when he asked, am I good to go now, when he submitted the plans, and someone said, yes, well, these are what we need, he thought that meant we were good to go to start. So, again, I can't speak for him, so.
Can I ask one last question, and I'll go? This is kind of outside our job jar, but I'm just one of those inquiring minds. So it gets denied, and he's currently code enforcement. What happens tomorrow? I mean, is there a possibility he's going to be on the streets with his kids, or is there a 30-day window, 60-day window?
Code enforcement is a different department. I don't manage it, so they use their discretion to do the times. I don't think in this scenario, moving a trailer to possibly an RV, park is, a big, kicking you out. I mean, when you have an RV,
Yeah.
If there's places people park overnight with RVs to, but while they're moving. So I don't think anyone was going to say tomorrow you need to be out of here. They're going to, they're going to use their discretion to give them time to move out before they start, whether they go to court or put a lien on the property or any of that for the
And then if it
citations,
was,
or additional citations would be another step.
if it was denied here, the member could take it to city council,
He could absolutely appeal it to city council.
and that gives him a further recourse to a different audience if he wanted to.
That's correct.
Got it. Thank you. Sorry for all the
No, no worries.
questions with that.
So with a competent architect and engineer and a typical kind of 3 plan check cycle, what would the process, what would the timeframe typically be for a single family unit?
Well, our first plan checks are always within 10 business days, and second, and then further plan checks are always within 5.
Wow. Okay.
So that's our standard turnaround. That's what our contractor guarantees to us. Obviously, we usually add a few days for shipment there and back. So assuming he had someone that would turn it around in a week, you could get plans done, within a few months, easy.
Right.
It's
So
just
3 or 4 months is a reasonable.
They're also at a point where they're paying hourly rates for plan check because you only get 3 plan checks under our base fee.
Right.
So any plan check after that is an hourly rate. But my guess is because the first plan check, we basically have to start over with the new architect. The first one would still take 2 weeks
Right.
to turn around, and then it would be the five
Okay.
business days after 1 week.
Well, I don't want to be part of displacing a family, so can we do a shorter?
I have a question, couple questions. Thank you. I know I don't talk much, but this one I do. You mentioned public works and fees. What is he paid for what?
So because of ready to get set up for this trailer and this permit, he set up a sewer connection so that he would be able to flush the toilet into the
That
sewer.
answers
So
one question.
he paid the sewer impact fee, is my understanding, and he's paying a monthly sewer fee, which if we moved him off, I'm sure we could put a pause on it because there's no house there.
Okay.
They set up temporary electrical, which is again normal for when you're building a house, but he did it he got these permits sooner than he would normally with the house, thinking that he was getting ready, and obviously he paid for fees to put the cement pad. He
Okay.
will still need to pay his plan check fees for precise grade. Those have not been submitted or paid.
Okay.
So that there's additional fees that will need to be paid as well.
What about, does he have a construction meter for water, or is that through Beaumont Cherry Baller?
That would be through
Okay,
the other
so
district,
but
so
you don't
I'm not
know.
sure what he has for water yet.
Is there a grading? Is there going to be a grading permit?
We have told him a grading permit is required. He did a rough grading plan, and that got approved.
But then he dug a big hole. Okay.
Yes, so a precise grade plan is still required, and we'll have to go through compaction testing and all of that.
Okay, just to summarize, so he tried to start the process of entitlement to get a home in there. He put a trailer on there illegally, then built another structure on there illegally, went past his temporary use permit, and is asking for an extension. with no.
Well, he didn't go past his temporary.
Oh, okay.
The temporary use permit hasn't even become valid yet.
Oh, okay, so he
The
never had
temporary
that.
use permit, the condition on the temporary use permit approved by planning commission was that it became valid once a building permit is issued.
Gotcha.
He has not had a building permit issued because he can't get through plan check. And then it was good for 1 year. So now he's asking to have it beforehand for 1 year. But I don't even know if we would complete the whole project within a year from now, the way things are going.
Okay. All right.
So we would be back here easily in a year if this was approved,
Okay.
continuing. And again, staff feels that it is poor precedence just to allow people to live in an RV for financial considerations.
I agree. Okay, thank you.
I'd like to talk to him. I'd like to see if there was something that we could work out. Sometimes when you go with cheap consultants, that's what you get is kind of cheap service. If there's something that we may be able to do to help them out in a situation, even with shorter, more restricted timeframes to get through a process, I'd be interested in that. But again, I don't want it to be, I'm not going to show up to the hearing, not show up to the hearing, not show up to the hearing, and have it just continued kind of ad nauseum.
Yes, obviously, if you do continue it, I'll be sure to call him tomorrow, let him know that they continue it because he wasn't there, and that we don't see it happening again.
Right.
Okay. I like that, yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll give them a 30-day continuance.
Yeah, so we need a motion to continue.
Well, move to continue to the next regularly scheduled planning commission meeting.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Smith, second by Commissioner Rearick.
Commissioner Johnson,
Approve.
Commissioner Rearick,
Approve.
Commissioner Smith,
Approve.
Chairman St. Martin.
Approve. Okay, next item, item 3, conditional use permit, CUP 2017-0002.
Thank you, Planning Commission Chair, members of the Planning Commission. I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, are wondering why Kyle's bringing the same exact business back for the second month in a row. So it's not an error. It is actually the same business, just at a different location.
Okay.
So we went through the process. We got the approval for Artifacts, which is this thrift shop, at the last Planning Commission meeting. And then subsequent to that approval, the property was sold to another owner. And that owner intended to use the building that the prior approval was for their own business.
Oh,
Okay.
So therefore, this applicant no longer had a place to operate their business. So they did some research. They found a new location that was conditionally permitted right down the street from the other location. And unfortunately, and I felt really bad, but they had to reapply, pay new fees, get new mailing labels, go through the whole public hearing, mail out notice period again. So we did everything the right way. They went through that process, and tonight before you is Artifacts Thrift Store located at 200 East 6th Street. And that subject site contains a commercial building. It has a couple suites. One of them's 1,520 square feet. And that building is suitable for a secondhand store establishment. The Beaumont Municipal Code does require a conditional use permit approved by the Planning Commission for secondhand retail businesses. And the purpose of that requirement is to establish a formal review procedure and involve conducting a public hearing, given written notice to property owners within 300-foot radius of that site. And through the conditional use permit process, the Planning Commission has the opportunity to determine if the proposed use or the location of that use is compatible with surrounding uses, or through conditions can be made compatible. The proposed business has business operation hours of 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday. They're proposed to be closed on Sundays. Interior site plan shows a front counter with a combination of shelves and racks to be used to display merchandise, rear portion to be used for storage space. With regards to parking requirements, this site, like many other sites on 6th Street, is what we call legal non-conforming. And that being said, sorry, I forgot the word non on that one. So legal non-conforming, what that means is there's not parking on site sufficient to meet the parking regulations in the municipal code. I prefaced it with, we have that same concern with other properties within 6th Street, just because parking codes didn't exist when some of these buildings were erected. So how we treat those going forward on this property and other properties within the city is, as long as the business that's proposed within one of those suites is not a higher intensity, that be like a church or an assembly use or a restaurant from what has been used previously, which were retail or offices, the planning department and the city are okay with that type of use. We have street parking. The owner of this property actually owns a vacant lot a couple places over that's used for parking. We don't count it on this one because it's not on site, but that's kind of our mentality and our policy when it comes to these legal non-conforming sites within the downtown area. The proposed use is not inconsistent with prior retail uses, and we don't believe it will generate a higher number of users that has been approved in any business at this location in the past. Always a good reminder, the conditional use permit form of approval allows the city to monitor the subject use and initiate proceedings for revocation if the permit, if the conditions are violated or if the use otherwise becomes a public nuisance. So staff believes that sufficient protection exists for the maintenance of the public health, safety, and welfare in order for the planning commission to approve or modify and approve the conditional use permit in whole or in part, with or without conditions. The following findings need to be made, and those are listed 1 through 11. And staff recommends that Planning Commission number 1 hold a public hearing, and 2 approve conditional use permit number CUP 2017-0002, subject to the attached conditions of approval. And I can answer any questions from the city's perspective, and the applicant is here as well. Thank you.
Any questions of staff? I'm going to open the public hearing at 6:25.
Susan and Don Edwin.
I'm Susan Eklund, as my husband Don. We live in the historic house on Edgar between 6th and 7th. So and then we own a house kind of diagonal across the street. It used to belong to my parents. And anyway, the business that you're talking about is going to be right on our corner. And we're a little concerned. We've talked to the other neighbors in the area. They're all at work right now. And we said we'd come down. But we're concerned about the outside of the building more than the business inside. Everybody's entitled to have a business. I agree with that. But we're just concerned because a lot of thrift shops have a lot of stuff out in front, and
Yeah.
it looks kind of junky.
Yeah.
You know, and we're really concerned because naturally we're worried about property value, and we've got a lot of other places that aren't so wonderful. We keep, you know, hinting and, you know, out working on stuff and everything so other people don't follow the idea, kind of. But we're just a little concerned, and with the parking being the way it is, it's worked okay for an antique shop, but thrift shop might be a little more parking involved, but we're considered with the exterior, you know, how it looks and if it's kept neat and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Antique shop's been good as far as that, so.
Okay.
Yeah, well, they would have restrictions from putting stuff on the sidewalk. It's,
No, I mean in the front yard and all around, and then there's a porch in there. I've been in the inside of the building, and someone was built by a doctor, I think, originally. But we're just concerned with the property itself, not necessarily, they wouldn't put things on the sidewalk, I assume, but in the yard or on the porch, and a lot of strollers, you know, we're just kind of
well,
concerned.
we can control that with the conditions.
We can.
There will be a
I'll
public
respond
hearing
after they're
on
done
this
speaking.
issue later.
Okay.
I'm sorry?
You said there'll be a public hearing on
Of course,
this?
that's it.
This is it.
This is the public hearing.
This is it, so, yeah, no, we're just concerned about the front, you know, how it appears,
Okay.
you know, the appearance of it, because it does affect property values.
It absolutely does.
Yeah, and we talked to some of the other neighbors that aren't renters, and they've agreed, and they've put a lot into their house. We
Yeah.
have, and, you know, and they have, and the other guy did too. So we're a little concerned about that. So,
But if we put conditions on that permit restricting the use of the fenced-in yard,
yeah,
that would be satisfactory.
Yeah,
that and a porch.
Say-
You- You know what I mean.
Storage of any objects for sale
Yeah, you
or
know
should
what
be
I mean.
within
You know
the
what I
building.
mean.
And
Yeah.
I mean, to some extent,
I
they
mean,
have,
we shop thrift stores, so
Yeah.
we're not against thrift stores.
to some
But
extent, they
it's
have to
appearance.
show off what they have, but I agree with you, you just can't fill up the front yard with,
No, or the front porch, you know
well,
what I mean, though.
yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
know, I mean, if it's something really elegant, whatever, that's fine. But if it's a bunch of daily kind of stuff,
okay,
you know what I mean.
yeah. Okay, thank you for your comments.
Okay, thank you.
Kyle can respond to.
So staff has the same exact concerns with outdoor storage on this type of business and basically every other type of business within the city. And our standard condition on new businesses that don't come to planning commission and ones that do, or no outdoor storage is allowed on the property, whether it's behind a gate, whether it's in the front, just no outdoor storage. Everything for sale at a business needs to be confined within the building itself. We have some exceptions that we've done in the past on a kind of a trial basis. So I can think of maybe 3 or 4 businesses that have temporary outdoor storage allowed for. But when we're talking about thrift stores, that's what I believe is typically the major concern and why the city council established a conditional use permit for a thrift store is those types of concerns. So condition 1.10 reads outdoor storage and or discarded materials on the property are prohibited. So that covers us, all goods need to be taken in if they're dropped off, and they can't have anything stored outdoor or on display outdoors.
Right. Now, the building has almost a 0 setback from Edgar and from 6th, so, the storage should be kind of in the rear, and this covers that, so, because it's not going to be in readily public view or anything like that, so, yeah.
Rear, but in the front, it's really obvious because that's the first thing you see when you come into town.
Right.
For one of them, you
Is
know.
the applicant here?
They are, and on their site plan, they show storage within the building and no storage on the exterior, so I don't believe it's their intent to store
Okay.
items outside.
You say the applicant is here?
They are.
Do you have any questions of the applicant?
Having read through the conditions, do you have any comments or objections to what the city's proposed at this point?
No, I think it's up to you guys. I'm not gonna say, oh, you have to approve my business. If it's up to you guys have to decide.
Right, okay.
Jessica?
No.
No, I mean, we've already talked this was talked before, so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to close the public hearing at 6:31. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll motion to approve conditional use permits CUP 2017-0002, subject to conditions of approval.
A second?
Commissioner Johnson,
Approve.
Commissioner Rearick,
Approve.
Commissioner Smith,
Approve.
Chairman St. Mark.
Approved. Item number 4.
Thank you. Conditional use permit 17 CUP 06. This is the proposed expansion of an enrichment center located at 240 Maple Avenue, Suite A, currently expanding to B, C, and D. In February 2014, the Planning Commission approved a charter school at 240 Maple Avenue, Suite A. Discovery of Learning applied for and was approved to take over the charter school and open an enrichment center in September 2016. Staff has received an application to expand the enrichment center into suites B, C, and D. Discovery of Learning is an enrichment center serving transitional kindergarten to 12th grades. Classes are available from 1 to 4 days per week. The enrichment program offers in-class opportunities for all grades, supporting families in their homeschooling or alternative education. This is a CUP, and therefore it allows us the opportunity to have a formal review and conduct 300 feet. Although it does require, for a charter school, although this is an enrichment center, it's in staff's opinion that it's the closest thing in use to our code, so we're treating it as a charter school, even though it's not defined by the state as a charter school. From a city perspective, we're calling it a charter school. It's a school where kids go 1 to 4 days a week and have classes. The key issues related to approval of a school in an industrial zone involve the appropriateness of the location and the nature and manner of operations to be conducted. With regard to the location, the school is located at TBU Center on Maple Avenue. The TBU Center is composed of retail, offices, small industrial, a gym, and other commercial industrial uses. The site is currently accessed from Maple Avenue and 3rd. The total size of the expansion, with the expansion of the Enrichment Center, will bring it to a total of 17,514 square feet. This includes classroom areas, stage areas, an indoor gymnasium, offices, break areas, and restrooms. The municipal code requires parking for 1 parking space for every 15 square feet of gross classroom area and 1 for every 200 square feet of office. The enrichment centers, basically it brings it all to with the assembly use, 114 spaces, which is completely beyond the capacity, because the assembly area and the gym and the gymnasium won't be used when the classrooms are in operation at the same time. So it's not like everyone is using the entire building. With just the office and the new classrooms, it actually requires 80 spaces. They're telling me their capacity is about 80 children. And again, not everyone comes every day, and there are multiple children in the same family. They have about 60 striped spaces, plus an additional 10 to 15 spaces along interior to the site along the curb. So not street parking, but they have a curb that they can park at right in front of the center across from the parking area. So they're not quite there, but staff believes that the use and the need is met. No one stays the whole time, drop off, pick up.
I was just gonna say,
different days. So you've got a lot of different drop off. And because this is almost an alternative education, I don't even know that they all are there at the same times. So, so we really do feel that the intent of the parking code is met. Additionally, we did add the code that if a condition that if staff feels that they've outgrown the space, they do have too many students, we start to get a lot of parking complaints, it can return to Planning Commission. If staff feels that it seems that they've outgrown the space and the parking needs. It allows us to monitor the subject use and initiate proceedings for revocation of the permanent conditions are violated or if it otherwise becomes a public nuisance. Sufficient protection exists for the maintenance of the public health, safety, and welfare. This is exempt from CEQA. The findings are required that are listed in the staff report 1 through 11, and staff recommends you hold a public hearing and to approve conditional use permit 17 CUP 06 subject to the proposed conditions of approval. This one in the past, there was concerns from Planning Commission regarding air quality. We did keep that condition in there that they have to provide a report. I included the report that was given in September when the school started of the air quality in and around the school. It is shown at the same particulate level as adjacent and nearby schools. I think they tested Palm area and there, and it was shown to have the same air quality particulates. So you can keep that in the condition, or you're free to remove it from them having to do that air quality report each year. I do know that they did have a hard time finding someone to do that air quality report because it was so specific to look at that. They are putting the classroom indoors due to the condition for no classrooms outside because of the concern of air quality in the outdoor area. So that's part of this expansion, is to still give a place for the kids to play and have it indoors instead of outside where the possible trucks are coming in out of an industrial center.
Now I see that the applicant's not here.
Yeah, the applicant is the formal applicant is the owner of the center, not the school. So the owner of the center is doing all of the processing on behalf of the school. So we did notify, TBU basically that this was, but they, I don't know what questions they would be able to answer anyways about the school operation.
No, the question I was going to ask is what type of tenant improvement would be done in that building?
Well, they are going to be required to do tenant improvements to meet fire and building code because it is classrooms. There is definitely a condition in here that they're going to have to do TI plans and go through the process with fire and building.
But they realize that, once they've spent that money, and if they should outgrow it.
I believe they do realize that as they are the owner of the building, not even the school. So So I don't know who's fronting, they might be fronting the money in order to collect the additional rent from vacant space. You can see the plans that they kind of hand drew to see how they were putting the walls in. Obviously, they'll still have to do formal submittals.
Yeah.
So if I recall, there's also a gym on this building, or like a CrossFit.
That's correct.
And these are fairly small units,
Yes, they are.
release units.
Yes, they're each, it's in the new site plan that shows
Yeah.
about how much each suite is, because they were almost identical when I was doing the math to figure out how many
2,200 square feet.
suites. Yeah.
So you're not going to have any real heavy industrial uses in this type of a center.
Other than what they're doing and combining suites and
Right.
have something. No, it's all light industrial.
Okay.
Is that where the Lion's Den is also? It's in that general vicinity?
I think it's in the area, but not in the center. If I remember correctly.
Okay, any other questions of staff?
No, staff now. So when this first came up for planning commission approval, there was concern due to the proximity of the railroad tracks and the potential uses in the center about air quality. That was something that we discussed at some length at the initial approval. You know, having the test results come in, knowing that they might be difficult. I'm not sure that I want to eliminate it completely, but maybe if we went to like a once every 2 years, once every 3 years or something like that to show that, you know, if a use goes in there that might be more intensive, that it's something that we can kind of fall back on, but not if it's showing fairly consistently that it's at standard with the other schools or other sites in the district, I'd be comfortable kind of reducing that burden on them as well. If anybody else has thoughts
That
on
makes
that.
sense. I mean, it's interesting to see that the playground had dust.
Yeah,
It's kind of like common like duh.
yeah.
But no, that makes sense. I mean, I was kind of leaning towards suggesting that we take it away, but you have a point, you know, every 2 years or something, just since it's hard. I mean, it's hard enough for a school like this to start.
Yeah.
Let alone. And then number two, they're expanding, which is great. And that's something
Yeah.
that, Chairman, you always support is growing businesses. So we don't want to put unneeded burden. And ma'am, if they've already tested and it's the same as the other schools, and I mean, I could see taking away or 2 years or 3 years, whatever
Yeah.
whatever the group here feels comfortable with, I would support the whole gamut.
And
Do
I
they
can
have
also.
an outdoor playground?
They were conditioned not to.
Okay.
When they took ownership, they didn't realize those conditions and put one. Since been removed when we told them. They removed it pretty quickly when we let them know of those conditions. And now they're looking at putting the indoor one. I also wanted to point out that I kept the same condition for the same exact review times from the original approval. So their original approval was required to come back to Planning Commission for review in 5 years from the February 2014 date. So if you guys want to extend that, and then it was set to terminate 10 years. So in February 11th, 2024, they'd have to reapply as well. So if that makes a difference in those other conditions, knowing that they'll come back in 2019 and then be up for expiration in 2024. And have to submit a new CUP. I just wanted to let you guys know that I left the same review period, even though it changed owners and it now has an expansion.
Here's a question. So if a use, the school's been established there now for a while and will continue to do so. So if a use were to request to move in, they would be in conflict with what the current operations are. Is that grounds for Planning Commission to potentially deny that business an opportunity there?
If the new business requires a CUP, because it's an industrial zone, there could be some possible conflict allowed to go in. That would be the staff level approval that we could not deny the new business to go in.
Okay.
So it would be up to this CUP if it came back through the testing or through other concerns.
Right.
That you would then revoke the CUP.
Now, with current kind of air quality requirements as they are, anything that's done in the shop, they pretty much have to scrub before they can release it anyway, right? And it's,
As far as I'm aware, yes.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I have a question. I got confused on the whole 2019 thing. So right now, they're already coming back in 5 years?
within 5 years of the original
2014.
2014 date. I kept that same condition in here. So 5 years from February 11th, 2014, they will come back for a review.
Okay, and
for
so
review.
is the thought extending that from 5 years from today, or just leaving that as it is?
That is absolutely your choice. I left it as is in the proposed conditions of approval because I didn't want to, even though they were coming for this review, I didn't want to extend what you guys had conditioned on it. So that is your choice whether you want to change the 5 years from and make it from this date and extend even the approval 10 years from this date, or whether you want to leave them from the original.
Commissioner Rarick, I'm thinking it's probably similar to you on this one too. You know, about,
Go
sounds
ahead.
like you're kind of going 5 years from now.
Yeah, and then do the air quality in the 5 years.
Yeah.
If the other commissioners would entertain that. I think that's, these schools try so hard to get a foothold, because everybody's against them, to be honest. It's good we want to help, where we can. And at least don't take away unnecessary burden.
Well, here's a kind of a follow-up question to that then. We're going to review it in 5 years. It expires in 10. If, they've established themselves, they've just demonstrated that they've got the capacity to expand and grow, do we want to take off possibly an expiration and just go with 5-year reviews for compliance? I don't know if there's an advantage or disadvantage or concern from the city's end in that matter.
We usually put the expirations on projects that there is a future concern of not just outgrowing but changing because some of the administrative changes over time. Usually you see with CUPs that we either have a time frame or we limit transfer. So
Okay.
we put this time frame in which allowed Discovery of Learning to purchase it without coming back for a new CUP. So in something like this, staff would recommend either you add a condition that says it's for this sole school, and a new school would require a new CUP and have to accept new conditions, or you leave a time
Have an
frame on and
expiration.
require it to do it. But it is,
Okay.
but that choice still, if you want to remove it, is up to Planning Commission. It's just what staff has put in the recommended conditions over the last 5 years.
Okay.
Can we say that this school comes back every 5 years? This school comes back every 5 years, and it is redo the CUP. Is that what we're saying?
Keeping it
No,
specific.
you could
it's-
say it'd come back for review in
For
5
review,
years and
yeah, okay.
expire in 10, so they'd have a new application 10 years from now that would send out 300-foot notifications
Yep.
and start over.
Why don't we do that?
Yeah, and so
That'd be-
that way if they do sell to another charter school operator within that time, they don't come back within, okay, I gotcha. I'm with you now.
Okay, so I'm going to try to make this motion. But Rebecca, please correct me where I go wrong here. I make a motion to approve conditional use permit 17 CUP 06 with the condition that it is good for 5 years and
Let me, okay.
Yeah,
so
go ahead.
Today.
Here's what
Yeah,
staff
we
is
screwed it up.
recommending. Staff is recommending an amendment based on direction from Planning Commission, amendment to condition 1.5 that will now say, this approval shall require Planning Commission review within 5 years from this approval date. Additionally, the approval shall be valid for a period of 10 years, terminating on this date in 10 years, I'll put in, unless a new conditional use permit is approved by the City of Beaumont prior to the expiration of this date. And then I don't know if you also want to then require amendment to 5.5 that says an air quality report shall be submitted to the planning department prior to the 5-year review.
yes, exactly just like that. So the amendment's 1.5, and what was the other one?
5.5.
5.5 that Rebecca just said. I make a motion that we approve that.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Johnson,
Approved.
Commissioner Rurick,
Approve.
Commissioner Smith,
Approve.
Chairman St. Martin.
Approve.
Good deal.
Is there any further business for this commission?
No.
gonna-
Other than a reminder that our first community workshop is June 21st for the general plan update,
Okay.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
Okay, I'm going to close this meeting at 6:47.